Our next speaker unleashed the renewed energy and interest in democratic participation amongst young people when he ran for president in 2016. Senator Bernie Sanders understands that young people are the future of our movement. He has inspired so many to get involved and to knock on doors, to donate.
Thank you.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. My apologies for interrupting the introduction. Let me begin by thanking CWA and Faith in Action and Demos and CPD and SEIU and Planned Parenthood and all of the groups who are here today. And let me thank you not only for putting on this important conference, but more importantly for the work that you do every single day in the fight for economic, social, racial, and environmental justice. Thank you all very much. We are obviously in a pivotal and unprecedented moment in American history. And the fights that we are waging are not just for ourselves, more importantly, they are for our kids, our grandchildren, and the future of this planet. And if anybody in this room, and I know it's not the case here, but anybody in this country who thinks that now is the time to throw your hands up and give up, you are dead wrong. Now is the time more than ever to stand up, fight back. And I want to thank all of the groups here because whether you know it or not, you have helped transform this country in so many ways. A few years ago, just a few years ago, and I want you to think about it, many of the ideas that we talked about were thought to be fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas. Well, you know what? Because of your efforts, those ideas are now mainstream American ideas. A few years ago, some of us said the very radical idea that maybe the United States should join every other major country on earth and guarantee health care to all people as a right, not a privilege. And we were told, oh my goodness, you can't do it, it's too radical an idea. The establishment won't accept it. Well, we introduced a Medicare for All single-payer program in the Senate. 16 co-sponsors, a majority of the American people now support Medicare for All. Thank you. I want you to remember this, because you made this happen. A few years ago, some people out on the street working at the fast food industry, they said, we can't make it on $7.25 an hour. We can't make it on $9 an hour. We need a living wage, $15 an hour. And all over the country, people were saying, you're nuts, you're crazy. How can you talk about more than doubling the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour? And what people responded by saying, if you work 40 hours a week in this country, you should not be living in poverty. $15 an hour and a union. Well, today, that idea is no longer radical. In fact, it is being passed in states and communities all over this country. We have 30 co-sponsors on that bill in the Senate. Every one of you knows that our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our rail system, our water plants, wastewater plants are crumbling. A few years ago, we introduced the idea of $1 trillion investment to create 15 million good-paying jobs. $1 trillion, too radical, too crazy. Well, even today, Donald Trump thinks $1 trillion is the right number. Let's rebuild America, create 15 million decent-paying jobs. A few years ago, many of you and I said that in an extremely competitive global economy, we have got to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and reduce student debt. Oh, that was a radical idea. Imagine that, doing what countries all over the world are doing. Well, today, again, all over America, candidates are running on the idea of making public colleges and universities tuition-free. My Republican colleagues in the House and in the Senate, they got a brilliant idea. Their view is to give $1 trillion of tax breaks to the top 1% and the largest, most profitable corporations in America. And then, as they run up the deficit, they want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Well, that is exactly, by the way, what the American people say. Overwhelmingly, the American people say, no, we're not going to cut Social Security, we're going to expand Social Security. A few years ago, very few people were talking about our broken criminal justice system. Very few people were talking about the insanity of having 400,000 people in jail today for the crime of being poor because they can't afford cash bail. Or maybe they're spending time in jail today because they can't afford to pay off a traffic ticket. But all over America now, from coast to coast, people are saying we need fundamental reform in a broken criminal justice system, that the war on drugs has got to end because it fails. Because of your efforts and the efforts of millions of people, what is happening now across the country is, instead of people being arrested for possessing marijuana, we're seeing the legalization of marijuana in state after state, and that is a positive development. Right now in America, because the middle class continues to collapse, because millions of Americans are working longer hours for lower wages, people understand increasingly that if workers are going to get a fair shake on the job, they need a union, they need collective bargaining. And people increasingly understand, and the numbers are very clear. Young people, working people increasingly understand that we're not going to grow the middle class of this country unless we grow the trade union movement. That's why I recently introduced the Workplace Democracy Act with 16 co-sponsors in the Senate, which says we're going to end the obscenity of right to work all over this country. are going to make it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. And that is not what I want, not what you want. That is, in fact, what the American people want. And I'll tell you what else the American people want. They do not want tiny children ripped apart from their parents and put into detention centers. And that is why together, and the American people, again, not your idea, not my idea, demand comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship for the undocumented and legal protection for the DACA young people today. So let me conclude by saying this. Those changes in American politics didn't happen by accident. They happened because of your efforts and the efforts of millions of people. Our job now is to go forward with a progressive agenda to build a grassroots movement and to transform this country. Thank you all very much.
So, the one thing I wanted to say that I didn't get to